while you're talking out.
Hi, you guys. Welcome to tonight's show. I am excited to have this conversation. We're taking a little detour away from what we normally would talk about, but it still relates to relationships because at the end of the day, dealing with racism affects our ability to connect with other human beings. Relationships are not just intimate between male, female, or same-sex relationships. It's how we interact with human beings. And when we don't see each other as human beings, that's when we are challenged. That's why we can't have successful relationships, friendships, or any other way, because we can't connect. And we're struggling with it because we're not dealing with what's called racial trauma. And racial trauma is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It is trauma that BIPOC people, and that is Black, Indigenous, people of color, experience at the hands of racism. Right now, we're seeing a lot of traumatic experiences. We just added another name to the list of unarmed Black people. This one recently, he got stopped for a bike violation and was murdered for a bike violation. So I've gotten a lot of comments that, this isn't anything new. And it's true. That is true. That is absolutely true. What we're dealing with, what we're seeing as it relates to Black skin being the new death sentence, it absolutely is not anything new. It's just being filmed because of this handy little wonderful thing, cell phones, okay? Cell phones have really made Black people believable. That is the sad reality, because we've been saying for years that this is happening with police brutality and this thing and that thing.
People that deny it.
Y'all didn't see what I just thought. Y'all finna see it in a minute, but I'm gonna finish my introduction because I can't with him right now. But he said in the group chat he was gonna do this, but I didn't know he was gonna be this bad. I want to love you, Horace Down. I really do, but I can't stand you right now with this name. But I think that
come on, man.
Right. So this thing here has really amplified Black voices as it relates to what goes on in Black skin. And people, would always, I know personally, we could have conversation about it, and I'd hear people say, oh, Black people are exaggerating. It's not that serious. It's not that bad. We'll be all this, that, and the third. But the reality is, it is that bad. And now it is captured on film. And now it's, oh, it really is that bad. I'm seeing comments on Twitter where people actually said, and these are white people who are actually saying on Twitter, Black people, did y'all really know it's going to be this bad? Has it always been this way for you?
Yeah, they don't know. I've had to educate some of my white friends, and I love them to death. I've had to educate some of them and school them all the time on Twitter and in person, especially when it comes to the police. They have the mindset of, oh, just don't commit crime, nothing's going to happen, or they love to bring this up, Black on Black crime,
which is a white narrative.
Right. I'm like,
statistically speaking, there's more white on white crime than Black on Black crime.
Not only that, they like to say there's more Black violent crime, or they say, oh, why do you think more Black people are in jail? Because we commit more crime. I said, no, you're not targeted.
Correct.
You're not. And
you don't even get the same sentencing.
Yeah, when I give examples about how I was targeted, they make comments like, oh, well, what did you do? Well, you must have done something. No. It is. Or when I do give examples, they say I'm lying or that's exaggerating. I'm like, no, there's literally been times that I was in college and I had a do-rag on. I was walking to 7-Eleven and he slammed me to the ground, telling me I don't look like I go to this school.
Right.
And told me a lie.
We just saw that in California where the college professor's brother came to his sister's house that she lived in on campus. And she was at the door. She answered the door. Her brother said, they said, you got to show ID to prove that you live in this house and that you belong here. She's a Black college professor at a school in California. This recently happened. I posted it on my Twitter. I posted the actual, hey girl, Candy. I actually posted that the incident that happened. I think it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I posted it on my Twitter. It was a real situation. The guy was walking in the neighborhood, and he was finally able, after quarantine, to go visit his sister. And on that college campus, she was in housing for college professors. And she's one of few Black professors on campus. And she was like, I don't feel safe as a professor on this campus at all. And then the president came out and made a statement about how unfortunate it was because campus police, she opened the door to her house, music playing, she's dancing, and they say, we need you to prove to us that you belong in this house, that you're living here, that you're supposed to be here.
I know what you're talking about.
So it's not imagined, and it's real. So when it comes to us saying, when I say that Black skin is the new death sentence, when I say new, it's not, I understand when people comment and say that it's not new, but it's a reality. It's just unfortunate that the color of my skin makes me an automatic target. And it doesn't matter if you're a woman or not, or even a child. It's true. And we deal with racial trauma all the time. And racial trauma doesn't have to be that it happened directly to me.
Exactly.
It happened to somebody in my community that looks like me, and now I have a traumatic association based off of this. And right now we're seeing one thing after another, and so it's a lot. So tonight we wanted to have this conversation, not to complain. I don't want it to turn into that, but to have conversation about real situations that are happening and how we can move forward to start healing, because we can't move forward in our relationships and how we interact with each other as human beings without having these uncomfortable conversations and talking about our experiences and, what can we do to do better and be better as a society as a whole. So, I don't even want to know what Shaka Zulu over there life is like down there. But Piff, I'm gonna go to you first because I can't with horse towns tonight with this.
No, let him have his moment. I'm down.
Epiphany, how are you doing, gorgeous?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Are you trying to make up for the DM conversation, for the group chat conversation yesterday? Because I don't know.
He almost had to cash at me.
I told you to start sending him invoices and say and title the invoice "Reclaiming My Time."
Listen, I got more money than I got sense.
I mean, if I'm only spending $3, I'm never gonna make you broke.
You never know with COVID. Listen, I was looking at the reason I went with that is one part of it is a tribute. Second part is, listen, you guys have no idea the warfare that goes on when we're talking about the whites and we're talking about race relationships, race relations. So yes, I have seen and I have experienced from Black Twitter. If you say the wrong thing to somebody watching, they will look at your name and they calling your job and all that. Even though I work for myself,
trust me.
There's a lot of retaliation that happens, which I think is why we don't see as much conversation from some people of color and Black people and Indigenous people as we would like, because of what we see as the Karens, and I don't know what they're calling white men now that do it, because they do retaliate. It's very childish because, again, we can't move forward and heal as a nation or as human beings without having these conversations, and we can't sweep it under the rug. It's right in front of us. Like I said, this phone right here, everybody's capturing stuff. Everybody's capturing stuff. And the sad reality is when you're riding your bicycle and you get cited for a bike violation and you end up murdered for a bike violation, or the video where the guy over in the same county where the people murdered that grandson in the grandmother's backyard, they kicked that man. The man's hand is on his head, and the officer comes and kicks him in the back. And come to find out, add insult to injury, it was mistaken identity. So not only are you arresting the wrong person, you done kicked this man in the back with his hands up. He's complying. He hasn't done anything, and it's mistaken identity. Let's be real, people. What? This is where we got to have these conversations and why we need to have them. I'm not afraid to, because at the end of the day, if we don't have these not having a conversation and trying to avoid it is not going to fix it. It's not going to make it. It's not. I say this every time. It's not going to go quietly away into that good night. It's not.
Well,
not having it is not.
Let me give you an example. Well, let me be the butthole and the plug. Because
wait. Never mind.
Jeff, please let him keep talking.
Listen, when I was on the streets, we had a lot of interaction with the police, and Latanya, Dr. Hughes knows. At one time, our city was all black, from the police chief to the fire chief to the city council. However, we had a predominantly Caucasian police agency that terrorized our community at one time. So when I look at it now that I've elevated to political fashion, and I'm, in some of those meetings where I'm in meetings that the governor or senators are in, I always go back to policy. So now I'm on a level where I got to think about policy.
Exactly.
And I tried to create 2 bills and got little support, and then I seen someone else picked it up. But one of the biggest things that we have to highlight is the requirements for policemen.
Correct.
And when you look at second and third generation races,
don't go there.
Anybody can be a police officer. You run through a little BS obstacle course that's not really, nobody's really watching. So somebody can say
300 pounds. How in the hell did they get through?
You did it, but you didn't. You go through school for a couple of weeks, and now you're expected to exercise law. And a lot of people with low self-esteem and low ego are taking themselves to be judge and jury. Now they're also bringing agendas onto the job. So if you have someone who's racist or have a lot of those type ideologies, of course they're using this and abusing that authority that they have. So that is one of the biggest things, because when we had the police shootings locally around the country, the biggest thing that I told a political friend is education. What do you mean? I said, most of these cops don't have any education, but if you look on the state level, how many shootings have you seen on the state trooper or state level? No, it's always those police that you don't know their background, you know what I mean? And they're making decisions on the scene. So I think requirements need to be increased, at least 2-year education that a lot of agencies are doing, because a barber has a tougher time than a policeman.
I was just about to say that you need more hours to become a barber or a beautician to do hair than it is to wield a gun and a badge. And that to me is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand that. So I agree 1,000%. The criteria for becoming a police officer absolutely needs to change, because it's not rigorous. And you're right. The mental things that they go through, it's like, who's doing those screenings? There's so much that goes on with there's so much that goes on with this process to become a police officer. And here's the thing, I saw this the other day, and it's so true. I saw it today, as a matter of fact, that it talks about the difference between blue lives and black lives. And the reality is, black lives is not a choice.
Exactly.
But you choose to become a police officer.
Yeah. Well, one more thing. Now this is where it gets catchy. Because me and Jeff and Dr. Hughes, we had a conversation on social media where we were going back and forth. And I was saying something that's unpopular. And I highlighted this last night. Donald Trump has an issue right now, right? Before Donald Trump became president, racism was around. He used that base to get in office, and he's been using that base. So now he's in a situation where he's almost forced to marry that base. Yeah. One of my friends said behind closed doors, he's probably like, those idiots, blah, blah, blah. But that's all he has at this point. Now, whether Joe Biden or Trump wins, we're still going to deal with racism in this country. And to be honest, I think if Trump loses, you're going to see some civil war in this country. Yeah. I think if he wins, you're going to see things get significantly worse, because they're going to feel empowered. So we're in a position where black people, for once, we need to be okay being black and stop trying to be American.
And on the Biden ticket, you have a cop and a segregationist.
Yeah.
Things. They're not going to be able to handle this. They're just, you can tell the Obama administration is telling them what to say. You can tell. So
I won't put that comment on the screen. She don't know my background.
Are you serious? No communication. I just
what? No, she mistyped. She said sorry. She meant Horace. So
yeah, she don't know me.
Wait, what?
I don't know, and I'm not going there. Piff, go ahead and join in, guys. Jump in here into this conversation, please, because
entertain.
This is like the loaded gun pointed at you, right?
Right.
Where you're really having to make a decision on whether you want to live or die. This is kind of like that conversation.
It is
that I really, really try to avoid. I see unfortunately, growing up where I grew up in the Southwest, out of probably 3,000 kids in a high school, there was only 20 Black kids.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, racial issues are very different for me when I'm kind of transplanted over here to the East Coast, and it just everyone's looks like me. So it's just it's already a culture shock. I grew up in a time, in an era where, the biggest thing that you had to fear was kind of like the Bloods and the Crips, that the racism was it wasn't as outward as it is now. You know what I'm saying? As far as where I grew up. Now going back and visiting now, I do see a lot more racism and people kind of like trying to act like they like Black people. So for instance,
right.
I'm just gonna make it plain. So you have to be as the finest of the fine to have people do what they would normally do on the East Coast. Like, dudes open the door, they say hello, they do whatever they need to do. They're chivalrous, which I haven't really experienced non-chivalry, maybe, whatever, on the East Coast. But back home,
wow,
because of the way that I look and because of my figure and this and that, they do that anyway because I'm considered like a cream of the crop. But if I was bigger or I was uglier or I was other than what I am, I wouldn't get treated the same way that I am. So I kind of feel like unless you are the cream of the crop type of Black person, now Black men is a whole different story, but I'm talking about Black women.
I was gonna say for Black men, it's how much money you have.
No, not from where I live. You could be a poor Black man and still be cream of the crop. They're gonna fight tooth and nail over you because there's not that many Black men, and everybody wants to say they got a Black man and they have a mixed race child. I have a mixed race child, so I'm not coming for nobody that has mixed race children.
Mm-hmm.
My firstborn is mixed race, so please, this is not a shot at none of y'all for that. But at the end of the day, I kind of feel like Black men, for some reason, do in a sense kind of have it a little bit easier in the case that, like, let's say they want to go to court for their children, they're going to get their kids because they're like, oh my God, this Black guy wants to be a part of their kid's life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just it's like that small town mentality where they haven't been outside in the real world to kind of see
exactly
what it really is. Now, just speaking on that, if I were to say my transplanted epiphany self, these race relations are ridiculous. I live in what's considered a southern state. Of course, I live north, so I don't experience the racism that maybe I would if I lived in Southern Virginia.
Ours is not a direct, but it is, including where I used to live, but I won't go there on this live right now.
Listen, please don't. We're not going there.
That's why they have a whole new staff downstairs. You're welcome, but go ahead.
It's not better. Anyway, so I'm going to say, like, even when I was pulled over, what did I tell you guys? Like 6 months ago when I ran that red light, I told the whole story. I'm not going to retell it.
Yeah, that was in the previous.
That was a white cop that pulled me over. Okay, I want y'all to understand it was a white cop at like 5 a.m. I was in the wrong. I think that he was looking for somebody to give him some rah-rah or whatever you want to call it. And when I didn't give him that, he was like, well, dang, she's admitting guilt. She's whatever it was in his mind. It could have just been God that just went before me and, took care of it. But I was in the wrong. I ran the red light, and I admitted that to him. And he was like, ma'am, please just be careful. I did not get a ticket. He didn't read me the riot act. He didn't, it's not for someone like me. I kind of feel like it's all in your disposition. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like in order for you to make it, you got to play a game. And I'm not saying that you should be Pinocchio on the stage with the strings, but in order to get what you want in this life, we all play a certain game. So
me,
everyone plays a game. Whether it's your own game, it's a game. It's all a game. So what game are you willing to play?
I'm authentically me. Now, when it comes to the police, I do be on my P's and Q's, and then I get their ass later.
I think that here's the challenge that I have with that, Jeff and Horace. We shouldn't have to do that because there was a video this past week of a white guy, and we've seen tons of them railing and cussing and going at them, and they can attack them with weapons,
and they sit there
still get used with a stun gun. There it's a totally different standard or expectation and approach when it comes to black skin. It's an automatic defense mechanism. Automatically the hand goes to the gun. Automatically they're ready to be trigger happy. They don't do the same thing with white skin, and that's what we're talking about. Black skin shouldn't be a death sentence to a black person. We shouldn't have to have conversations with our children. I grew up listening to conversations my parents had with my cousins, and eventually they had them with us. Listen, don't think because you're a little girl that's going to make you immune to racism and being treated differently and stuff. Remember, I said in another episode, and I think it's the one that we had with George. We had after George Floyd passed away from being murdered. Ooh, that I said I was in elementary school when I experienced racism for the first time with a substitute teacher, and I didn't understand why she didn't like me, why she treated me like that. It was a hard conversation my mom had to have with me, and I was like in kindergarten, first grade, so I genuinely didn't get it. Because I had never experienced, like Horace said, we grew up in an all-black town. When I grew up, Rivera, the road was black folks. When I moved to North Carolina, I was in Asheville, North Carolina, working in a hotel, and a guy asked me about it. He said, what's that all-black town in South Florida? It's between such and such a place and such. I said, you're talking about Revere Beach. Mm. So people knew about Revere being an all-black area. And so I wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't. And so white families don't have to have the same conversations that black families have. That's the reality. And again, we're seeing it filmed where families are having conversations with their children, black fathers with their black sons. And you can, and I can attest to this, to watching my cousins be raised to 10 and 2, 10 and 2, all 10 and 2. Put this on the dash. Don't even have to reach for it. Make them get it. 10 and 2, 10 and 2. Put this in the dash. Don't ever have to reach for nothing. 10 and 2. Why? And when the question of why comes, it's like it's a moment of silence. Because you got to figure out how to articulate it in such a way that your child understands. And now we have to have that conversation with young people, younger and younger. It's sad that black fathers have to have this conversation with a 5-year-old. And for Jacob, where his 3 sons were in the back seat watching their father get shot in the back so many times, that's traumatic. So now that's another explanation. And I don't know if you all know, when he woke up, he asked his father, why did they have to shoot me so many times in the back? And my boys were in the back seat. That was the first question he asked. When he opened his eyes, he asked his father, Daddy, why they had to shoot me so many times?
Let me ask you this: you saw the NBA responded with protests. How do you feel about that?
I have an answer to that.
I think my answer first. I think that it was important they did that because it showed one. That's why people get on Al Sharpton a lot. There's times that I roll my eyes at him too, but he keeps the narrative in the media.
Yeah.
And see, when you have folks who have influence, let's be real here. Sports players, it's kind of like a plantation. They're getting paid, but the owners are making 50 times more from their work. If they don't play, you don't have a league. They're using their power productively.
Correct.
To push a narrative to keep it in the media. Because if I guarantee you, I didn't even know about the story until I heard that one of the playoff games, the Rockets sat out because I've been cheering for them. So I was like, wait, what's going on? Then it said Jacob Blake, and I looked it up, and I said, whoa. Yeah. It's that. It's sad.
I think that, for me, I think that it's responsible. Like you said, when you have privilege, you need to use it. And we talked about this in our last conversation with we talked about George Floyd and, you know, a lot of the backlash and we talked about how back in the day you had people like Jane Fonda and different celebrities who would actually use their, you know, their privilege, use their platforms to really address racism and in all of its facets. So to me, I think that what they did following the WNBA, because let's be real, let me just go ahead and say it, WNBA has always been about that life. That's always been a charge of theirs. And so I think using that platform, because unfortunately, I mean, I say unfortunately, but the NBA has a much broader audience and a wider platform. So I think, to me, I think it's very much important to not just see that as a team, but to hear the players talking in those after game press conferences to focus on the issues, the coaches. I think it's really important. I can't think of his name. I could see his face, but when he walked off that set, I was just, he was like, whatever gonna happen was gonna happen. We'll deal with it later. I don't even care right now, but I feel like my place is with my fellow players. And I think that that's what we need to see. I think we need to see more of that. And, you know, stop telling people to shut up and dribble, because it is more. Because at the end of the day, I did a post and I said people would much rather you be dead than appreciate your talent.
Yep. Yeah, because they know you voicing a concern can sway people.
Yeah,
that's the same reason why some people at jobs and stuff, they try to silence people who go against the grain. They don't want everybody turning against the way it is, so they remove you. Trust me. I got
a question after Epiphany.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tiff.
So what I was going to say was, when you think about it, like if you think about slavery times and you think about how we were brought over to do these jobs that white people really didn't want to do themselves, right? They didn't want to be out in the field. Let's just be honest. That's some rough work. Just like we don't want to be out in the fields right now, and they don't want to let the Mexicans in. But that's a whole different story.
Well,
I can do that. I can do that show.
I mean, listen, I kind of feel like, where's the food going to come from if we don't let Mexicans in? I'm going to just really be honest. I come from the Southwest. Migrant workers pick corn. They pick.
Me too. And
they do it on the west coast of Florida. When they pick tomatoes, they get like 8 cents a barrel or something.
I'm going to mind my business on that. But what I'm going to say is,
there'll be more jobs for us and less crime and sickness. But we'll leave that alone. Go ahead.
Oh my God.
No, nobody wants to pick cotton. Nobody like.
Surprised. If the
jobs are out there, I'm telling you, the jobs are out there. That people don't want them.
Yeah, no, I can say that from a hospitality.
People didn't even want to go and pull crab out of the Chesapeake.
I don't know where you're getting that from. I do that for fun, so I don't know.
I'm talking about as a job.
But I'm not gonna. Let's stick to the topic.
Anyway, so what I'm saying is, I kind of feel like, and I mean, anybody that has like a science background, correct me if I'm wrong, okay? But I kind of feel like, in a way, our DNA has become stronger. This is how I feel, okay? Not that it's fact. And we're viewed as a physically stronger race.
Viewed as we are.
So, no, not necessarily, because I could name a whole bunch of other things that we're plagued by, but physically we have become a stronger race, which makes us supposedly more
that comment right there.
menacing. I kind of feel like this is why people use the we're scared we're scared because one, we were brought over for this labor. We succeeded in building a country on our backs. And then now that we've built it and it's thriving and it's good, and in spite of everything, it's still thriving. You know what I'm saying? We are now looked at, oh my God, are they going to take the country back? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Can anyone feel me on this? I kind of feel like
we're
viewed as a race that could really take over. Like if blacks used maybe 5% more of their brains, then we could take over. You know what I'm saying? Not necessarily that we're stupid. Please don't think I'm calling us stupid, but I kind of feel like at the end of the day, we built this. This is ours. So why not act like it's ours? No, we don't necessarily have to play a game, but what I'm not going to do is get injured or act stupid it's really acting stupid, because ghetto is a place. It's not a definition of an attitude or a state of mind. So I never use, ghetto. That's a slum. That's actually a place. But when we talk about how we act, why is it I see people of my own race go to this grocery store and like throw things at people or do different things that are very aggressive, not assertive, because I think there is a difference. Being assertive means that someone has done something to you and you're asserting yourself to let them know that it's wrong. Aggressive to me is when someone has not done anything to you and you're like, why are you looking at me like that, or whatever? You know what I'm saying?
Don't you think that's more defensive than aggressive? I get what you're saying, but don't you think it's a little more defensive?
I want all of that. I don't think
that it's defensive. I think that why can't you just walk around in a state of being that's not like, well, I guess everyone has a bad day, but I'm just saying, at the end of the day, we are a race that could take over if we really wanted to, because to me, we are a physically strong race.
Like Nat Turner and anyone who ever rebelled, you notice they not only hung them, but they got rid of their body.
But
and they
also
did stuff to destroy it.
But just to go to the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, the WNBA, these players are, man, this is like the hybrid DNA. These are our superheroes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we talk about the Olympians. What are they? They are predominantly people of brown skin color like us, or black.
Melanated.
Predominantly, we are the ones that run track. Predominantly, we are the ones that play these very aggressive sports because our bodies, quote unquote, can handle it better. Because I feel as though when we were brought over, we were built up for this. So it is important that we utilize our platforms when we're making. How much? Didn't Patrick Mahomes just sign a bill for a deal for like $1 billion?
Yeah, the George Zimmerman apologist. Yeah, him.
If he were to walk off the field and say, "Look, I'm not playing because this has got to stop," do you know how incredible that would be?
Yeah.
Do you know, like,
he won't because he defended George Zimmerman, so.
But it's.
I know what you're saying. I get your bigger point.
I kind of feel like at the end of the day, if almost the entire bench is black, and it doesn't matter what sport it is, the entire bench is black. So, I mean, well, except for hockey. I mean, but we won't go there. Horace, go ahead.
I'm in pain. I'm in pain. Good workout this morning. Okay, let me out the leash. Keyword people in the audience. first word we want to pay attention to is indoctrination. Why is that important? Indoctrination is a big word.
Here we go.
What Epiphany say. I love it. Two misconceptions. One, the blacks, which AKA Native Americans, most Native Americans were my color. They were Dr. Hughes' colors. They were already in America, right? There are people that had already been in America. I know because my descendants were already here. They didn't come on. Now, two, the people that did come on the slave ship, they didn't come here because of labor. You know why they were brought to America? Because throughout history, that African person, the African man and woman, has built civilization all over the world.
That's right.
That is the biggest misconception. If it's not the pyramids, they said
he got froze.
Man. Oh man!
Listen, he was into it too.
He actually was making a good
if you
point.
look at your own history, he's not lying. If you look at world history,
Europe. So I don't know where I went at, but listen.
You froze.
You froze. Can you start over?
No, not start over. Get back to the part about the pyramids. That's the last thing you said.
Pyramid. Yeah. Black man has went all around the world, and they created civilization all around the world. So it was no accident that they brought us to America. If you look at the brilliance of DC with Banneker, that is a brilliant story from his mind. He put all that on a scale that is perfect. It aligns with the stars, similar to Egypt. There was no accident about that. So they brought us here to build America. Now, what happened was after we built America, what we're going to do with all these Negroes? Second part of that story, which went wrong, is we got so many Negroes here, and they the ones that actually know how to do the work. Yeah. So after the slave era was over, black people were making money because you know what? We were the only one that really knew how to work and had skills. Why was that a problem? Because all the slave owners and people that been living the good life, what are we going to do? So that's when they start creating unions to make sure blacks couldn't get jobs. So the point I'm making is the key to America's survival is to always keep the oppressed out of power. What is power? Money. Making sure that we are always discriminated against and always out of power. Now, the second part is when I go to segregation. Right after segregation, white people didn't really come to the black side of town until it was a major issue. So in Riviera Beach, I can say we did have some good years because the blacks controlled the
Rosewood Massacre.
But the blacks controlled that part of town down here. You know what I mean? So if a black person is in his neighborhood being a cop, he understands that everybody's not a suspect as compared to the guy that's coming into the community. He's nervous as hell. He's scared. He's scared of black people. And you want this person to come in and uphold the laws. That's why you have so much chaos. So I think my last point would be community policing. Why is that important? The misjustice is when we have African Americans that join the police force and allowed to be indoctrinated, and all of a sudden, instead of being a black officer, they turn into a police officer. And then you hear them saying, "Oh, you know, they have this oath to the blue." I don't know what it is. Almost every officer that I knew, and me and Hughes knew, became police officer, and they turned into this super asshole. It's almost like I'm not black, I'm a policeman.
Oh God!
Motisa. They they from the Motisa tribe.
So that indoctrination, I mean, even from the programming, it has been such a warfare on us.
Right.
Whether it's keeping us oppressed, making sure we're not financially competitive, or making sure we're just dumb as hell. So when you say, "Oh, I see us act out and whatnot," we've been dumbed down so much to part. It's almost like strategic warfare. You know. And then we don't recognize it. There's so many communities around that's just impoverished homes. When you'll have a kid or two that say, "This is not my life," and they go out and empower themselves to do better. But most of them become, casualties to their reality. So we've been dumbed down. And if we could ever blink and realize, like, wow, we are really being dumbed the hell down, I think we can wake up, but we repeat so many cycles in this community till it's a shame. Me and my brothers talking the other day. I had kids. I love my kids, but I had 3 kids out of wedlock. there's certain things in our community that we have allowed to be normalized, and it's not
back in the day it was not acceptable.
And it doesn't build a nation. Right. It does not build a nation at all. So I take responsibility for my action. We got to change those things. Sorry,
I want to say this. Let me build on this real quick. I think part of the challenge, I put a comment about the intimidation that I was in a conversation today that a company had on creating anti-racist organizations. The previous conversation was the impact of racism, and quite a few of the white attendees said that, you know, they tend to feel intimidated, or, you know, just having these conversations. One guy was honest enough to say, I'm uncomfortable with this, but I am willing to step outside of my comfort zone to deal with why I'm uncomfortable talking about and dealing with race, because as a white man, I experience things that others don't, but I'm not happy with what I'm seeing in my organization. So my comment about white people tending to be or feel intimidated by Blacks and Blackness, it is valid. I've seen it. I've had conversation about it. I think a big part of it is statistically, white people in America, I'm not talking about around the world, but in America will not be the majority in a couple of years. Yeah. In fact, I just posted a link to an article on PBS. It's talking about it. Non-Hispanic white people are still the majority, representing 59.7% of the U.S., but in just a few short years, they will not be the majority. If anything, Hispanics will be the majority in this country. And I think that that's what it's saying statistically. It's also saying that, whites will drop below 50% of the U.S. population by 2045. There's a lot happening here, and a lot can go either way. A lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of millennials and younger generations are not having families and not having kids. Why? Because they can't afford it. So to Horace's point, a lot of the policies and things that are put into place to oppress Black people and BIPOC people are really backfiring on white communities, because white kids are coming out of college going to live at home with their parents because they can't afford rent. Yeah. And a lot of them are saying, you know what, I'm going to make a mature adult decision and say, if I can't afford to take care of me, I'm not going to be able to afford to take care of a kid. So they stop having kids. So what happens when you don't have that population?
But the statistic for women that are educated, which Black women are some of the most educated women in America, the more educated a woman, no matter what her race is, becomes, the less apt she is to have children.
True.
Making educated choices.
Huh? They are. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what you want. People are making it educated.
Yeah.
They're making educated decisions.
It is a statistic. The more educated a woman is, the less children she will have. So, for instance, like, I will use my family as an example. My mom had me at 17. She had 4 children. All 4 of us have we all have a college degree. None of us have over 2 children. None of us. So we only have 2 kids. None of us hit 4. Whereas on my father's side, though, my sisters, they don't have college degrees, right? And this is not anything against them. This is just proving the statistic. One of my sisters, she reads a lot. So not that you need a college degree, but she is educated. She only has 2 children, right? Mm-hmm. But my other sister, she has 9.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Dr. Hughes' comment blew me away, simply because I would think that we were going to be second on that list. But for you to say it's Spanish, that kind of ties into why there's so much hate going towards deportation, build a wall, those type of things. Because America is based on what? Not us, for damn sure. We weren't included in the Constitution and whatnot. Hell, we weren't even included in the first Christian values in this country because we were slaves then. So what did they
and we didn't even know Christianity was, because most of us were not Christian.
Well, here's the thing.
Can you go back to Candy's comment? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Which one?
Candy made a great comment about, I really wanted to, yes, this one.
Oh, child.
Let me say this, Candy. I love this comment right here.
It's the gospel.
It just puts it into perspective, because when you talk about having Black women having to nurse people that are not even your children, and maybe not even having children of your own,
correct,
but you're nursing someone else because you got big boobies,
right?
And contrary to popular belief, men, you can produce milk whether you have children or not. The milk will come down. As long as that child starts nursing, the body will start producing the milk.
It's natural. That's part of the woman's DNA.
My ignorance. What the statement means.
Okay, so here's the statement. Black monkey is a racist term. They used to refer to Black people as racist. Okay, Black women used to nurse white children. White women did not nurse their own children. They didn't raise their own children. Once they gave birth, Black women nursed and raised white children.
So right. So when we're
supplying, and this was not just in America. This was worldwide.
That's where Mammy came from, right?
Yeah. Do y'all remember that to cure rheumatism, they made a Black child get on the ground. They would put their foot on their backs, and they were supposed to cure rheumatism.
Yeah.
There's some ignorant stuff out there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I just like that comment.
Able to nurse and bring and nurture and entertain and be innovative and provide all this stuff, but at the same time, once you get it, it's like you can throw us away. We're disposable, and we're not. We are human beings. When you peel back this skin,
remember that
we all bleed the same. Peel this back. It's the same tissue, same blood, same organs. It's the same. Yours, white, Black, no different. If you need a transplant of an organ, some blood, some tissue, you don't know if it's coming from a Black person, Hispanic person, Asian person, or whatever. If it's a match, it's a match. Are you telling me you would rather die?
Some people would.
Then get life-saving something?
I have a relative that was a EMT, and a guy was literally choking to death. This was like back in the 60s, and he saw a Black person coming to help. He was the only one that was CPI certified, and he said, "I do not want you to help me. We'd rather die."
Yeah, and that's ignorant. That's real ignorant. I don't understand that, but I agree with Shawnee here. That's why they're pushing no abortions. Listen, this is and this comment about abortions, y'all y'all know how I feel about being respectful. People feel how they feel, and we have people from all different backgrounds and viewpoints. Some people are anti-abortion, some people are pro-life. Some of these pro-life people care more about a fetus in the womb than real human beings, Black people being murdered. They're silent on that. But anyway.
Not me. I'm pro-life, but I care.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, this comment here, that's why they're pushing no abortions. In some states, especially in Alabama, they really because the population in Alabama is dropping among whites.
Well, you also have to factor in, though, what they're not factoring in when they're pushing pro-life is all of the mixed race children. Because at the end of the day, you can push pro-life, but I'm sorry, a lot of these women are not getting pregnant by someone of their own race.
They're not. Listen, the majority of mixed race, there are so many interconnected. We had this in our conversation about interracial relationships. At this point, first of all, there was never any pure race. Let's just be honest. I'm going to help y'all understand something.
Okay.
There was never, ever, ever a pure race. Okay. Everybody got a little something in them. Okay. Let's just deal with that. But now we're living in a time now where you really see so many races interconnected. You're seeing Muslims marry outside of their race, and they never used to do that before. You're seeing all kinds of interweaving. And so to Piff's point, that is really where we are today. That's why this conversation is important. You can't be pro-life and not care about Black lives. You cannot, be on this earth and not deal with this issue. You can't have relationship. I don't care if it's intimate in your family or friendships or even on the job without dealing with this racial issue, because at the end of the day, you're affecting families and relationships. People can't even do their job because they're traumatized by the fact that we got another hashtag added to the Black Lives Matter list. We're traumatized by the fact that, my God, I might be sleeping in my bed. The police gonna kick my door down, murder me. Now they try to frame my boyfriend and get him to come up with this lie for a cover up to say he was part of some mafia family and nonsense. And it's all crazy. So it's like you're not even safe sleeping in your own bed at night in your home as a Black person. This is real, and you expect people to be able to go to work every single day and perform. This is the racial trauma we're talking about. We can't even have a relationship with each other in the community because we're traumatized, we're torn.
We sure are. Whenever I notice, just like Horace said on his show Monday, good job, by the way, brother.
I love the show.
I mostly listen because you guys be on point. And I actually take a lot of notes. See, even those who teach can learn. But you made a good point. That's this cancel culture thing's been taken too far, and we are incapable of. I'm gonna say this. Back in the day, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, or I'll go even further, W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. I'm gonna take it further than that. They did not agree. But they at least knew they both cared about Black liberation.
Yep.
And then they had their followers who disagree with each other. But at the end of the day, they all sat down together and said, this is how we're going to go about it. Let's figure out your best qualities and our best qualities and go for it. Booker T had the white folks. W.E.B. Du Bois had the education. They came together and did stuff. Now you disagree. It's, oh, no, I'm not rocking with him. Blocked. Oh, no, I believe in this. Blocked. And then now we go back and forth arguing about the same thing.
Yeah.
I put a status on Facebook saying people color and Black is not synonymous. And I had people going off on me. And I said, did any of you, I said, are you guys just mad that I'm correct and you just want to disagree with me? Or you actually understand, did you take time to understand where I'm coming from? They looked at us, oh, you don't want to sound Black. You don't want to.
That's not the case. The reality is, that's why when we say BIPOC is Black, Indigenous people, and then people of color, because people of color, it's not the same. Because what you're seeing, they are murdering Black people.
I was going to say Asians. Well, two things: Asians, Indians, Hispanics, whatever. They have plight, but they don't have the same plight that we do. And on top of that, and I'm just going to say it, they don't like us either. Most of the discrimination I've experienced has been from Asians and Muslims and other groups. You go into their stores, you go in the hood to their stores, to a liquor store.
They follow you around the store, but they will not follow a white person.
For my birthday party 2 years ago, I was in Maryland and I bought $350 of liquor, and he literally pointed at the screen, and when I was going to pay credit, he said, I need to take a copy of your ID. I said, is this a policy? And he said, no, but I just want to be sure. In other words, he either thought I didn't have any money or I was going to charge it back.
Right.
I'm like, I'm sure you don't do that to everyone else.
No.
Go ahead, Towns.
No, I want to go back to one thing, to Epiphany's point about distinction and whatnot. That's a real thing, because the 1/8 blood rule is kind of backfiring. You know, if a little bit of Black in there, you Black forever. That's something that's backfiring on the culture. Second, I want us to think about colorism. When we're still talking about Black, why is everything about Black? When I travel, now I've been able to travel. If you look at even tourist pictures, you know, when you're going out of the country, all you see on tourism photos are the light-skinned people or Caucasian people, right? But you visit these countries, man, there's more Black, dark-colored people than anything, right?
I agree.
And so that always has my mind just warped. You even go to Cuba, Black people, DR, it's more dark.
DR, especially DR.
Promoted is this fair-colored person from, I don't know if that's whatever, right? But I do want us to embrace this, and people, I want people to look at the word melanin and understand what melanin really is. When I got educated, you got gold, you got platinum, you got something that is trending, I think it's like $450 a gram.
Right.
Melanin. What did they get melanin from? Oh man, I could take y'all on a journey today. When you go to the funeral home and they put you on that slab, whether you know it or not, they extract something from your body right behind your head. It's called melanin. They extract it from the bodies. You know what they use? They use that to make melatonin and all these things that people of other ethnicities
taking a pill
for health benefits. You know why? Because they lack melanin. It's good for cancer. Because when I go in the sun, I went to the beach today. I sat in the sun for an hour. After I left there, I felt like Superman. Right?
Correct.
Everybody can't do that. So I really want us to start embracing that melanin is a good thing. Scientifically, due to the amount of melanin I have, yes, I am probably more athletic and I can do more things. That is a proven fact. So I don't know how we have been indoctrinated enough to not see our own value.
I agree.
And that's the thing that we have to change. And then we have to recognize why we're hated or why we're always targeted, you know, and that's something that we try to have that conversation. People will try to make you feeling bad for having that conversation or even having pride in being Black. And we can't allow that anymore.
The horrors. Let me tell you something. And you know, everyone knows I come from a more conservative background. I work with PhDs and stuff.
I'm going to get to this question in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah. And a lot of my white friends, like when all this was going on, they saw my tweets, they saw my posts. I even posted a story for me with a Black Lives Matter mask, and they were very confused because they're used to me always standing with them on political views. And I said,
but you're more than a political person.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I said. I said, this is not a matter of Democrat, Republican. This is about right and wrong.
Right.
So if I'm going to stand on a cause, I said a lot of the people who marched, Martin Luther King probably did not vote the same way, but they wanted right. What was right was right. But we're in a culture where things are politicized, and it's really,
it's crazy.
One more point before you get to it. Even when you see all these people coming up missing, you see a lot of people of color missing. And then you see in Oregon, you see a story where they found a warehouse full of body parts, right? Rockefeller was 100 before he passed, and he had all those transplants. You know who organs they were using?
Ours.
Like it goes so deep, but man.
Get Out was real. But I want to get to this question about, do you think race issues are mostly in U.S. and European countries?
Get out of that. Sorry, y'all.
Do you think race issues are mostly in U.S. and European countries? I want to take it a step further and ask, why is that the case? Because I do see racial issues happening in Europe and London. Because again, like Horace, I look at international newspapers and articles and stuff, and if you don't, you need to. You got to educate yourself on what's happening around the world. And I can tell you right now, I've seen some of the same things, and I've seen white people filming police with Black kids. Some Black kids were riding their bicycles through a park in Europe. I think it was London or somewhere, and they were like, well, why are they being detained? They're just riding bike. They're not doing anything different. Why are they being detained? Why are you arresting them? Why are they in handcuffs if you're just asking questions? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? So I do think that we do see an issue of racism in U.S. and European countries. I think a lot of it has to do with colonialism. If you follow colonialism and the path of colonialism, that's where you find the majority of racism and racial issues and all the things that you see. I think you will also find a lot of colorism. You see it especially in Caribbean nations, in South America, especially. If you haven't seen documentaries on skin bleaching, you see it a lot in Jamaica, which is amazing to me, but you see that there. You see it in South America, where they will bleach their skin because they've been somewhat, again, indoctrinated into thinking that lighter skin is better than darker skin. But at the same time, I told a girl that used to do my hair about melatonin and melanin in the store and being able to buy it. She was like, I never saw it. I said, go to the drugstore and look for it. I said, you'll see it. I said, look at the active ingredient. And the active ingredient in melatonin you're going to see is melanin. Where they get it from? I said, because they got to get it injected in their bodies in some way where it's natural to us. And like you said, I go out in the sun, go for a walk. I feel like I can run a quarter mile, and I don't run. You feel amazing. That vitamin D does something for you. It's like it ignites something in you. And so I think that, you got to take a look at some things. Look at stories like Henrietta Lacks If you don't know who she is, you need to study that. The thing is, people don't want to get into the ugly history of it all. I saw LeVar Burton, if you don't know, he's the PBS Reading Rainbow guy. On Twitter today, he posted an article that the Oregon Post posted about the ugly history of Oregon, and how it was just all this stuff dealing with whites. It was a whites only town, and somebody had the nerve to say, "Why are you posting? This is just contributing to Trumpism." And I said, "This is the truth. This is American history. Number one. Number two, it's a story that needs to be told, and he's a storyteller." So people don't want to learn the ugliness. They're perfectly comfortable pitching their tent in Comfortville in this whitewashed story of everything. And that's just not the truth. Everybody was so excited about, Jeff Bezos being the first billionaire. That's a lie from hell, because the first billionaire was Mansa Musa. And I had to post that. He was an African man.
Thank you.
Worth almost 400 billion.
I posted it on my every February I do.
Yeah, he was worth more than that. This man traveled with millions of dollars in caravans every time.
Yeah, I do Black History Facts every February. And people, although I have trolls who try to correct one little detail, that was one that got everyone off guard. Or they kept saying, well, that doesn't count. He was African. I said, he was
still black. It doesn't matter. That's just ignorant.
Dr. Hughes, you said something key. You was talking about colonialism, and that is something that's a plague to the globe, because even when we had racism and slavery in America, you had apartheid over in Africa. I got friends in Nigeria, right? So just like we're protesting about George Floyd, Africa has this problem still. Over in Nigeria, it's a hashtag called Justice for Nathaniel Julius. It was a 6-year-old black kid who was holding a biscuit, and he was shot to death. So around the globe, people of color are under attack. So man, I just tell anybody, the first thing I've told my son is, any story that you've heard, go read it and then research it, because most of the stuff we've been taught are
in the comments. Can you put that hashtag for me? I want to look more into it, just to put awareness, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. I think that when we start looking at a lot of stuff, first of all, we can't be afraid to talk about stuff that make us uncomfortable. Right. These are conversations that don't make Black people uncomfortable, but we get uncomfortable having them with white people. Get uncomfortable, and they raise all kinds of sand to make us feel uncomfortable, because it's classic projection. But we need to have these conversations. They need to be open. They need to be healthy conversations, not just sessions where we're at one another, but we need to be talking about it, so that, one, I said it in our last show, and I'm going to say it here, we need to have conversations where we're listening to connect to one another. It's not enough to just listen to understand. We got to listen to connect with one another. And that starts with having these conversations and really, really figuring out that bridge. But the reality is, we have to accept that some people don't want a bridge. And again, some people will accept your talent. They will accept everything you have to offer, but not accept you. And that's where we are.
Now, I overall, the thing that changed my life, I tell you, back 2010, I cut off my cable, and I started reading so many stories, and I read everything that I was told to stay away from. I went to. Sounds crazy, but that's the kind of person I am. There was a guy back in the days called Reverend Knight. Remember, he used to come on Sunday mornings, and everybody used to say, "Oh, you don't listen to that fool. Listen to some of his sermons." Yeah, Reverend Knight had some great sermons. You'd be like, well, it kind of makes sense. But I say that to say, and I'll talk offline with you guys about it, but certain books that made me, like, it's right there. Now
Horace is freezing. Anybody want to chime in until he unfreezes? Horace, you're frozen.
Reality. Well, I'm sorry, conspiracy theories, but there's a lot of lies. And we can go right to Google or read a book, and you'll see the truth.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, in this day and age, there's really no excuse for not educating yourself, because books even read to you at this point. You don't even have to read. It's on audio. You can listen to it on the drive home or
hey, there is nothing wrong with a good audio book.
Oh my God.
For real. Seriously. I mean, and there's some books on audio that you can get on YouTube. Some audio books are even on YouTube, so they free.
Oh my
like
God.
Some of the old, you can listen to the Art of War by Sun Tzu, for instance, on YouTube.
That's too funny.
Jeff, somehow, baby, you're muted.
Jeff,
Why are you muted?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I've been yelling at the dog. I apologize. I said yes, you can, because
I was like, wait a minute.
I said you sure can, because I did. And then not only that, the souls of Black folks.
Correct.
Even 12 Years a Slave.
Right.
There are so many relationship between Jews and Blacks. The secret relationship between Jews and Blacks.
This is a good question here.
With them, they hate us. Don't get me started. Right.
This is a good question. Why do people rely on Google for the truth? That's where we get things twisted. I agree. I think that
because it's a narrative of people who tell you what they want to hear.
Well, and I think the other thing, people want a quick answer. They don't want to actually do the research. When you talk about having to go in and cross-reference books, like for instance, I had no clue what buck breaking was until Jeff brought it up. And I was in African American history classes. I think
they don't teach you that in Black history.
So
they teach Frederick Douglass and Martin Luther King.
They teach you whitewash.
But I didn't know what it was. So then I went and I'm like, let me look this up. Let me see what it is. And boy, did I really see what it was. But I had to cross-reference a few things in order to really understand what it was and why it was done. Now, that's just one thing out of many things that we as African Americans, Black people, whatever you want to identify as, we need to know. Yes, it's going to cause you to feel a type of way. Yes, you're going to have to check your attitude. But I feel like the more knowledge you have, the better you know how to navigate this world. I think the more, in a way, I feel like the more educated you are in knowing that this is how we're looked at, this is why we're treated the way we are, it helps you navigate the world in a very different type of way.
I agree.
Hey, Dr. Hughes.
I agree. I think here's the thing. Cassidy hits it right on the head. It's instant gratification. The reality is people are lazy. They don't want to dig. They don't want to do like Piff. Cross-reference, because when I look for stuff, I'm looking at the validity of the source. I'm not trying to just put anything out there, because the internet is filled with whatever people want to throw at you, and it's not real. I can create something in my head, like imaginary fairy tales, planes of Black people all over the nation going to go start riots and all kinds of crazy stuff that I make, that they're on this imaginary plane, or whatever I can make up. But that don't make it true. So Google absolutely can give you quick answers, but that don't mean that it's all facts. I mean, we live in a time now where everything is fact checked. And we're depending on other people to fact check for us. But you got to learn to do some stuff for yourself. At some point, you got to learn to do some stuff for yourself. Read, like I said, you can get audio books. And I think the more you start investing in yourself, because this is what it boils down to. You got to invest in yourself. You have to invest in being a human being towards other people. And this is where I am with it. With this conversation, Black people can express all day long the horrors of what it is to live in Black skin. But if other people who are not Black, that's indigenous people, people of color, and everything that falls in that category, and white people, if you're not going to invest in what it costs to be a human being towards other human beings, you're defeating the purpose of every issue or every cause that you stand by, and that's especially all lives. All lives matter is trash, and I said it, and I stand by it. Why? Because if you can say all lives matter and be silent about Black lives, or always have a contradictory statement about Black lives, you are not about all lives matter.
Well, all lives matter is just a way to ignore the issue at hand. And when people say that, I'm like, no. Or blue lives matter. I said, no. The difference is you don't have 400 years of indoctrination, the word of the day, of being put down and oppressed and violence And then not all lives went through that. And when you say that, it's dismissing the fact that we're targeted. It's not, no.
Dr. Hughes, I want to go back to one of those questions. It's a good question. Why do people rely on Google for the truth? That's where we get things twisted. I want to attack that and just give some theory to that. Two things. One, the biggest danger of the internet was there's some pros and cons to it. Before, whatever we were taught, remember back in the day, they told us Africa was poor, it was destroyed, it was just so tacky. Remember the commercials? One thing the internet did do was connect the world. Because I had a friend that was in Pakistan, and we would talk when video first came on. I have friends around the globe. I have friends in Africa. Their homes look 10 times better than my community, right? So the internet had its pros and cons. Now, when the internet first started, you could get some good information. Now the internet has been so perverted, and then you're going to get a pile of crap. So you have to comb through there, but at least it gives you some sources of information that people have put out there. Dr. Hughes may put a PDF out there and publish it. It's going to show up on the internet. Why is that important? Because the mission is to always keep us so damn dumb. What do you mean?
Just like they didn't let the slaves read and write. Oh, he froze, biting his lip. I guess they wanted us to hear that point. But that's what he's saying. They keep us ignorant, and that's why they didn't want the slaves to read and write, because the ones they could knew what was going on. They knew how to rebel and beat the system.
So I think that's a good point. When you think about, well, especially when I think about like where I teach. Man, you just think of a kid like 14 years old reading at the second grade level, and you say, how did that happen, right? Mm-hmm. Then you look at, okay, well, all the districts around this particular school district are saying we're going to keep our kids out until January, right? But this one particular superintendent, CEO, whatever you want to call her, says, no, the kids need to go back in October. Then on top of that, the governor said, everything's a go. I'm going to open up Maryland, because they know that one particular race of people is going to say, well, we're open, so COVID is gone. So it's because people aren't as educated and haven't read the stuff that everyone else is reading. So those numbers are going to go through the roof. And it's kind of like we're, in a way, even though we're educated Black people, we're still killing ourselves off. I see so many Black people just not doing right by their own community. Like you said, you know, when you say Blue Lives Matter, I think it's everyone from, you know, being a principal of a school and having this color and knowing that you're not walking around and being a presence to, you know what I'm saying? And not really pushing reading and not really showing that reading is important and not really caring or investing that time that you need to show that love, to nurture, because let's be honest, you need to be nurtured when you're in some of these rough communities, because that's not what you're getting at home. You're getting it's the real out there. They're not getting hugs or, you know, whatever. They need to be nurtured, and they need to be able to come up and say, okay, there is a way to go past this, move past this. Even within my own community, I could still live on this block, but I could own the block. You know what I'm saying? And bring my people up. So I kind of feel like at the end of the day, it's not just police. We need to look at ourselves as a whole. What are we doing as people, as educators, as just everything, every job that we have?
People,
yes. How are we giving back to people in our inner cities? And I kind of feel like that's why I always ask the question of, you know, we have these people in these elitist groups that are Black, huge thousands of people, but I don't necessarily see them going into the city that I work in. I don't see the work in that particular city. Now I do see it in DC, but I don't see it in the particular city that I work in. And I'm not saying that there's not money given or, you know, whatever, but I just haven't seen it myself. And it's just very difficult it's difficult when we have thousands upon thousands of elite blacks.
Oh,
that aren't.
And then I was very disappointed. And I've never said this before, but the RNC pissed me off when they had the guy, the Attorney General in Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, who can indict Breonna Taylor, sat up there and did a Blue Lives Matter, and then had the nerve to mention was saddened by her death. But that was it. But went on about for 15 minutes about Blue Lives Matter. I said that was a slap.
Arrested every single person that protested on his lawn, including most recently a senior citizen who sat on his lawn knitting.
You know what it is? He's in a red state. He's Attorney General. In red states, the way you get to governor is being the Attorney General.
Oh yeah, he's on a career path. But here's the
all it is. He doesn't want to piss off his base.
Right. Here's the thing, though. What Pip is saying, that career path. At what point? At what point do you, again, like I said earlier too, at what point do you sacrifice? When we were talking about when you made the comment about the NBA and they're protesting, at what point do you sacrifice? It goes to what Horace was talking about, colorism, and we talked about Jim Crow and Willie Lynch, and we talked about indoctrination. All skin folk are not kinfolk, people.
True.
That's the reality, and it's sad. It's frustrating as a Black person, but that is the truth. All skin folk aren't kinfolk, and that's how we are where we are today, and that's why we have issues with relationships. That's why we cannot connect with other human beings, with one another, because we don't see each other as human beings, or we see each other as a threat and competition, and it's all ridiculous. It's all ridiculous because, again, like I said, when you pull back this layer, we all bleed the same. We all got the same organs. It's all the same, but for some reason, we're not treated the same. And it's a problem. Go ahead.
No, I want to say, look in Florida, South Florida, you watch the news. It was a headline today that said COVID numbers have dropped dramatically, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, because they stopped testing. You know what I mean? So then you look at, they're making it, when you have someone blatantly say we're making a vaccine that we have to test on Black people first, man, please. The same person that dad was over eugenics, the same person that said that the earth need to be depopulated and he's in Africa doing it, wants to give you a vaccine. Man, please.
Correct. And that's not happening. It's not happening. Like I said, I know I had a conversation with someone who is not a Black person who said they can't wait for the vaccine. They would be happy to test it because in their mind, once they get that vaccine, they don't have to wear a mask. And I'm like, that's not how this works. You still got to wear a mask.
Oh, that's the kind of people that buy a mask and put it right on.
Right. So I think that, again, we have to, my cousin said this, and she's right, as a community, and we're talking about community as people, human beings, we need to do more to uplift those in our community, encourage and educate, not just about race relations, but on how to rise above the stereotypes, regardless of whether others accept us or not. We must change our mindset. It absolutely starts with us as an individual, because at the end of the day, you're not going to please everybody. That's just, that's just reality is we're not going to please everybody. You got to find your tribe. Okay. In this situation, we got to find our tribe of people who are going to teach us who are going to treat us like human beings. We got to find our tribe of people who we can connect with, that we can share ideals with, and people who can respectfully agree to disagree, but we can still find common ground. You do it on your job for a check every day. Why can't you do it for a human being?
Because people feel on social media that they feel validated. And now people don't know how to disagree, so they feel like when you challenge their opinion that you're attacking them. But yeah.
If you see that comment.
What
comment?
The so many leaders one?
No, the one after that. No, somebody's in the hospital.
Wait, what?
Not enough leaders, so many politicians, preachers, other folks in position of authority who are only out for themselves. And that's true. we do need leaders who are going to do better, who are going to be better. And that's what it boils down to. But who's going to be the leader? I think that y'all heard me say this before. Leadership is a lifestyle. It's not a position or a title. It's not a function. It's who you are. Every single person here has the ability to be a leader. You're a leader to yourself, if for nothing else. So my charge to you is lead yourself in this situation. You got to do some self-reflection. Ask yourself, what's your level of comfort or discomfort when it comes to race relations? Not just the conversation, race relations, period. And that's beyond just Black people. Yeah. What's your level of comfort or discomfort with people that don't look like you? And how do you govern yourself in those spaces? And what's the work you need to do to be better?
I think that's the best thing about what's next.
Correct. It is.
It's a group of people that are just tired. One thing I can say, me and my friend had an argument, and I was telling her I'm not marching. I said, the people out there doing all this crap, they could care if you march 50 blocks. And then we brung it back. He's like, it's about the solidarity. So when we did march, you've seen people of all different ethnicities. You know, I think people are just tired of racism, you know what I mean, as a whole, whether it's white, Black, people. It's like, it's so stupid to the point where if we need to get peace in the world, people are coming together and saying, we're just over it. It's too much.
Correct. Yeah. I agree. I think that we have reached that breaking point where people are sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. And there is, and we have such the younger generation has gotten to the point where they're like, we're not taking that anymore. Either we're not going backwards or going forward.
And that's what knows about white people who say, oh, they're rioting. I said, rather than focus on how we're responding, why don't we focus on what we're mad at? If we do, people, like I always say, even in my personal life, people always get upset when you respond or your retaliation, but they don't see why you were provoked. Same thing.
It's deflection to get away from the issue. And so, you know, my charge for everyone tonight as we close out is, you know, again, we got to be willing to do that work on ourselves, because we can't connect with other people in a relationship, whether it's intimately or as friends or in a community or what have you. If my tired is tired, but it is, my tired is tired, and the tired behind that is tired. But we have to be willing to do the work on ourselves and find our space in this. Like I said, I agree with Horace. Everybody's place is not to march, but you got to find your place. Horace's place is in politics, so he's working behind the scenes to write policy and talking to people who can make those policies and push those policies. You know, Piff is in the classroom. I'm in higher education. Jeffrey's in education. Troy is at the CDC, who we miss him tonight, but he wasn't able to make it. All of us have a place, and we're using our platforms in the spaces that we have to have conversations constantly. Just because you don't see it live, publicized, everybody's not doing the work just for the gram.
Okay.
A lot of the real
I think that your enough is enough and your tired is tired. But what does that look like? Do you know what I'm saying? When you say that my tired is tired, my enough is enough, like enough is enough. What does that look like? Does that mean you pound the pavement even harder to make people want to go and vote? I need to know what this looks like, because at the end of the day, I could say my tired is tired too. Listen, let me tell you something. What I'm tired of having to pay to come to work. Point blank, period. Right. I pay to come to work. At the end of the day, my tired is having to beg for books for my students to be able to read.
Right.
My enough is that when a district will not put money into books for these children to read. That's what my enough is enough looks like. That's what my tired is tired looks like. And until you invest in educating people around you and really just talking to those around you that look like you, and no matter whether they vote the way you want them to or not, the fact that they go out and vote is a big deal. Because guess what? For some reason, our vote, this vote right here, it matters. It really does. Yeah. We actually can sway the vote one way or another because we're citizens. And I think that you have to change the narrative. What does it look like? How am I going to affect change? Right. What am I doing? I'm going to tell you, I crowdfunded for books. I've done this. I've done that. At the end of the day, I'm always going to put forth my energy into my students, no matter how frustrated, annoyed, whatever. If I tell them to get us up the room, whatever, I'm going to still, they know I still love them regardless. They know that I want the best for them. And they know they could look at these videos. This is all public. It's not hidden. So, at the end of the day, what does it look like?
I agree. And I love that. That's what it boils down to. You have to find your space, your lane. You got to get in where you fit in. In the conversation that I was in earlier today in how to create anti-racist organizations, it was full of ideas and ways that people can leverage their collective voices in the workplace. You got to find your space, whether you're a CEO or line level, whether you're in the community or in your home. Sometimes the conversation is just in your home. Just start there. Start where you are. It doesn't have to be, we want to think everything got to be on a grand scale and we got to be out there with a bullhorn and a microphone. If that's you, go ahead. But beyond that, because systemic racism is more than just police brutality. It's in promotions on the job. It's in the C-suite. It's in hiring. It's in politics. It's in every fiber of the structure of what makes a nation, whether it's here in America or, Europe, Africa, South America. I don't care what continent you're on. Start with where you are, though. Start with what's in your hand. Just what's in your hand. Where are you right now? And really, and again, do the hard work to have conversation about.
Yeah, you gotta have the hard conversation.
You got to have that hard conversation with yourself first, and then go from there. Horace?
Before we close out, I wanted to say to all those, if you have a voice, be courageous and be responsible with it.
Amen.
I had a situation where I was speaking at a school board meeting, and the lady said something that my friend next to me was about to go crazy. And I stopped, I answered her, and I actually talked to her. She was very sincere in her ignorance. And I'm glad I had that conversation, because you have a lot of people who only see us on TV. They only see us on reality shows. Some people don't have much interaction with people outside of their, they're almost living in a cubbyhole, where they don't see
violent drug dealers
on TV. So we had a good conversation, and she was thankful. So on the job, or you have some friends, be courageous enough to have those conversations that they may not want to have, and just make sure with our voice, we get our word about everyone else's feelings for once in our lifetime, and actually start to break the monotony of race relations in this country. So that'll be my FYI for everybody out there. Let's step it up a little bit. And, we're not taking it anymore. Stop worried about everybody else's feelings, because we're not going to be the doormat anymore. Educate people.
Absolutely. I agree. I don't think there's a better way to end the conversation than that. We're not going to be the doormat, and that's what we're seeing. We persist to resist. And, these conversations aren't going anywhere. And, I think that we need to continue these conversations and have them in your homes. I want you guys to watch this again, host watch parties, share it, like it, continue to have conversation in the comments, because this is how we begin to heal. This is how we begin to move forward. Piff gave a great example of what it means to do something with your tired. It's not enough to just be tired. This is my platform. This is me. And not only is this me in the classroom, I'm constantly pushing my students. Okay, now take what you learn here. And how would you apply it to this situation that's really happening in the world right now? Because it's not enough. You got to see yourself in the situation and pushing it. You got to be an advocate. And advocacy, there's no one size fits all. doesn't look, it's not just in a box and this is it. It's where you got to start with where you are. Horace knows in his space, in his lane, what that looks like. We got to be healed. I agree. Until Black people are healed, whole, and happy, empowered in our image, you know, we got to get to that space. But yeah, we got to step it up. We have to step it up and do our part, because if we don't, we're still going to be tired. Next year, we're going to be tired. The year after that, we're going to be tired. And we're just going to have this laundry list.
It's going to end up being
a civil war around the globe 11 million times.
But we're doing it for our kids. We're doing it for the next generation. That's how I look at it.
If you don't, if for nothing else, you got to see, because otherwise, what are we setting them up for? What is our legacy? And if you see your activism, you see your voice, you see your space as just that legacy and building a legacy, maybe, just maybe, that'll give you the courage and the leverage or whatever, that incentive that you need to step up and do something. Because if we don't, there won't be much left for the next generation, and we owe it to them. Right. We owe it to ourselves to have something for the future. You know, if you have children, think about, if nothing else, sit down and look at your kids and ask yourself, what am I leaving for my children beyond a bank account and a house? Because what good is that if somebody looks at their skin and murders them? So what good is that if somebody looks at somebody else's skin and that bullet misses that person and hits your kid? Because it happens. Bullets don't have names on it. They fly. There's something called ricochet. Anything is possible. So we thank you guys so much for joining the conversation. Again, like, share, continue to have conversation, host watch parties, have these conversations, because we want to do something to move us forward, to have healthier whole communities, healthier whole relationships. And it starts with understanding racial trauma, understanding what it is to live in Black skin every single day, and keep going and come up with things that we can do to move past that and heal the hurt, heal the wounds, but more importantly, to see each other as human beings. Because like I said, peel back these layers, we all bleed the same. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see y'all on the next conversation in 2 weeks.
Peace.
2 weeks?
2 weeks. Yeah.